Hey there, resetters. Okay, let's get on to sugar. So, unless you've had your head in the sand for the last few years, it's really starting to come out now in the widestream media that sugar is bad for you, which is great. For a long time, really since the 50s until about 5 to 10 years ago, sugar had a bit of a free ride as being an okay thing to consume as long as you were burning off the calories that you consumed by eating sugar. We know now we now know that that's totally wrong, and media is starting to catch on and report the same thing. But sugar's been linked to obviously to weight gain and fat gain. It's actually better to think of what we call fat in our bodies as excess sugar. We don't get fat because we eat fat. It's not as simple as that. We don't eat a piece of fat from an animal or from an avocado. It doesn't go through our body and then just get stored in us as fat. It's actually what we're doing is storing excess sugar that is in our bloodstream that puts our blood sugars too high. And then as a safety mechanism, we release this hormone called insulin, which goes into our bloodstream and pulls out sugars from our blood to return the levels back to a normal healthy level, and it stores those sugars in our fat tissues. Okay, so if you think about the fat that you're carrying, and we all carry fat, it's a necessary thing to carry, but we don't want to be carrying too much, otherwise we go into all sorts of other health issues. If you think about that fat that you're carrying as excess sugar, it should change your perspective on consuming sugar. So if you're consuming sugar, your body's never going to get a chance to burn off the excess sugar that it's got stored in it. If you're always consuming sugar from carbohydrates and refined sugar especially, then you're never going to be able to burn that fat off that you're storing if that's what you want to achieve. So it's responsible for weight gain, obesity, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes, which is basically we're all on an insulin resistance spectrum. And as you get towards type 2 diabetes, which is caused through your diet and lifestyle, you go into something called pre-diabetes. It causes high blood pressure, and then all of those things above that I've just listed are linked to risks of all cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and liver and kidney damage. Then in terms of mental health, excess consumption of sugar is linked with dementia, and a lot of autoimmune issues. Tooth decay, that's the one we kind of always knew about, but also things like depression and increased risk of cancer. So it really is something we want to moderate and stay away from, not just for the 30 days, but for life ongoing, really. And it takes something to kind of break that sugar addiction, if that's what you've got. What we want to do is really get focused on reading ingredients, looking out for words that end OSE, so O's like fructose, sucrose, dextrose, those sorts of things. They are all forms of sugar. So if you're buying something, first of all, read the label. And then there are natural forms of sugar that you can move over to that are going to be better, but they are still going to create a blood sugar spike and an insulin response. So if you are really aiming to burn fat and reduce your body fat composition, then we would recommend that you really try and limit all forms of sugar, whether it's refined or natural, over the 30 days. So when we get into fruit, try and limit your fruit portions to somewhere between 2 and 4, maximum 4, so that you don't overconsume sugar through fruit. Especially stay away from things like dried fruit, because the percentage of that dried fruit, the sugar is much higher as a percentage because the water's been dehydrated out of it. And then where necessary, use sparing amounts of natural sweeteners, things like natural stevia. That doesn't actually create a blood sugar spike. Then you've got things like xylitol. Then you move into things that will create a blood sugar spike but are a more natural form, like raw honey, raw maple syrup, and coconut sugar. But again, using all of those in small quantities where possible. Okay. And what you want to do really with taking out all the sugar is replace that craving with a craving for healthy fats. So we'll go on into another video where we're going to look in fats in more detail and using fat for fuel. So we'll get into that in a little bit, and we'll release that soon. Thanks, see you soon, bye.